All right. Welcome to Fuck It All, a podcast about redefining what it means to have it all. I'm your host, Casey Lett-Gordon, and today I am so excited to be speaking to entrepreneur, activist, mother, all-around badass woman, Jenn Graham, on her journey to choosing a better world. For those of you that may not know Jenn, she is the founder and CEO of Civic Dinners. Civic Dinners is a platform that is a civic engagement tool to enable community leaders to bring people together over food for conversations that matter. With that, I'm going to jump in, stop introducing you, allow you to introduce yourself. Hello, Jenn.
Hi, Casey.
Thank you
so much for having me. It's exciting.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here, and we'll keep it authentic. This is really my first go round at podcasting and having you join and telling these stories. So I'm so grateful.
Yay.
All right. So we could talk about a lot of things today. We can talk about your business, which I do want to get into because it is a business, but it also has so much heart and purpose. And I think doing that in this world, especially as a tech entrepreneur, it takes so much bravery. We can talk about motherhood because you are a mother to one, almost two little ones, and doing those both simultaneously, which I think is just fascinating and terrifying. So I want to ask you, Jenn, which of those do you want to start with? Any of them speak to you more on this Sunday afternoon?
Oh gosh, they're both so intertwined. Honestly, Civic Dinners wouldn't exist without my partner in life, Tom Stokel, my husband. So I think kind of the life and the wave. So I'm happy to start wherever makes most sense for you.
Excellent. Well, for those that may not know, I've come to know Civic Dinners well and been a participant of the dinners. I think it was happy hour that I officially had done, but why don't we talk a little bit about what is Civic Dinners and what was the catalyst behind starting that? And then we'll talk a bit about your own personal journey through that.
Yeah. So Civic Dinners actually was born out of a total social experiment. I came from a background as a community organizer. And for 5+ years, I had helped organize TEDx Atlanta. With the whole purpose of trying to raise the level of conversation happening in our city around really important issues, from education to transportation and so on. And over the years, I would pour my heart and soul into putting on these amazing events, inspiring 300 to even thousands of people in the audience, and even coaching speakers on how to kind of give the talk of their life, boiling their life's work down into the 18 minutes of like a TED talk. And it was invigorating. I got to meet so many amazing people from all different walks of life. But suddenly I started to realize that we weren't really making the change that I had hoped to see as a result of all of these amazing ideas that we were putting out into the world. And I started to, I think, struggle with this idea that, well, maybe change isn't going to happen just in rows or in auditoriums. What we need is more intimate spaces for people to be able to gather and to connect with one another, to build relationships and to talk and to find ways that they could really commit to take action. And so I started to explore what other models exist out there that are more intimate in nature, smaller but more focused. And that's when I stumbled upon the Jeffersonian dinner model or salon model, and started to kind of weed through those, and came up with the Civic Dinner model, which is essentially the recipe is like a host, 6 to 10 guests, 3 big questions so that we take people on a journey. So still honoring the structure that I love so much about TED and providing that very kind of curated, amazing experience, but then making sure that everybody had a voice. So making sure that everybody had equal time to share with one voice at a time. And so that's like the basis of the Civic Dinner, whether it's over food, pre-COVID, or over Zoom, post-COVID. What matters most is allowing people to really go deep. It's definitely a model for those who aren't necessarily into small talk and just want to get straight to the issue and to get to know other people on a deeper level, whether it's around politics or religion or the taboo topics that you're not supposed to talk about at the dinner table, or even, systemic racism, where we really know what role can we play and how can we get more involved. So Civic Dinners started there. The technology, if you go to civicdinners.com, is really about enabling more of these conversations to happen. So people can find a conversation that they are interested in, sign up to host or attend, and or we work with partners such as universities, cities, companies, even to design new series for their employees or their alumni or their members to really drive awareness around a new topic or action as a collective action campaign. So it's just been phenomenal.
How many years in are you now?
We are, how many years? It's taken, oh my gosh, the pilot started in 2014. And then it wasn't until 2016 where especially after the election.
What are you talking about, Jen? What happened in 2016?
What happened in 2016? 2016 is when I had my meltdown and when I realized that, oh my gosh, I wish this idea was alive and thriving in a world so that people could understand that they have a lot more in common than they do different. And this polarization that we're experiencing is just the dehumanization of people. And what we need is more ways for people to be able to come together, to connect as individuals, share their own experiences, and then be open to others. And I feel like that is the root of the problem. I mean, Obama mentioned it after postings that we live in bubbles, and that's the biggest threat to our democracy, is that we tend to hang out with those who look like us and think like us. And then that just perpetuates the polarization even more. And so, yeah, after the 2016 election, I especially just went all in on Civic Dinners. I'm going to give it everything I've got. I'm going to put everything toward it. And I had just also had I had just gotten married that February in 2016. Okay. And I remember sitting with my husband earlier like right after we got back from New Zealand, and I knew we wanted to have children, so we wanted to start having kids, and maybe 2 years from then. So he asked me, he's like, well, what would you do if you had 2 years to totally kick ass? What would you do?
What a great question. So we'll talk about like choosing good partners too. That's part of today's conversation, definitely.
Yeah, totally. So I was like, I'm gonna go all in on Civic Dinners. That's what I want to do, and see if this thing can fly.
All right, so we have to talk about so much of this. The first is that you organically, like, this is just part of you, right? You've had roles, you've had businesses, in starting TEDx here in Atlanta, you've been a part of the conversations or the art of conversation. Yeah. I think that is so naturally, and, part of the Fuck It All podcast is talking about what it means to be wholly a woman and what it means to be a modern woman. And to me, I come from a matriarchal family, probably different than certainly what we see a lot of times in society. And bringing people to the table, bringing people to have conversations, that's often in my family driven by the women in the family. Yeah. And I think that, to get people to slow down, to have conversation without anything like in it for you, so to speak, and I put air quotes for those that aren't seeing us on video right now, and doing that truly just for the essence of we're connecting, and to your point, we're humanizing one another. Yeah. That I would say is characterized a bit as feminine energy, and something that maybe everybody doesn't innately engage in. And so for you to go build a business around this, I personally find fascinating. And then you're building a successful business. Like, let's talk about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you say the feminine energy, because so much of the work, it's actually, I would say 70% of our hosts are female on our platform. And not by, whether it's a reflection of just our team, our team is heavily female driven, and that feminine energy around really trying to create community, create consensus, create awareness. The kind of classic community organizer was always the female, the ability to really rally people and bring them to the table. So yeah, that's been built in from the beginning. And I'd say being a mom too. Yes. I'd say honestly, it's forced me to be a much better leader, because before I tried to do it all. I tried to, be that control freak to make sure everything was, perfect and done. And when you're a mom, that goes out the window real quick. There's just
not if you want to be a sane one.
Oh, right, a sane one. True, yes. And I quickly, even before having little one, when I was first pregnant, with my son, who's now 2.5 years old, I remember thinking, okay, I can find some contractors to cover for the projects that we have right now. Cover, and I can be back. I'll take off 6 weeks and be back part-time, and we'll just kind of maintain what we've got. But what in reality, we ended up bringing in more business that year than we ever anticipated, because it was 2018, and the company, it just started to catch on and catch fire, and referrals and all inbound requests. And so suddenly, post giving birth, our team had grown from just me, literally in the beginning of the year, and a user support specialist, and we had our developer part-time. There were 3 of us, to a team of 8 by the end of the year, working on a variety of different clients and projects. And then it's been just growing ever since then, to where we are today, with now 20 people on our team. We just reached over $1 million in revenue as of last week.
Congratulations!
Thanks. For this year, every year, that was our goal. We finally made it this year.
Heck yeah, in a pandemic. Let's talk about that.
I know, it's crazy. So staying true to our model, we've become a benefit corporation, so that our mission is embedded into how we work and how we make decisions as a company. We've also had a very successful seed series raise, so we've raised over $1 million as well this year. So after being part of Techstars, which has allowed me to really invest in the right team members, because again, I've realized delegation is the best thing ever, and having solid people who I can lean on and trust to lead their own teams and departments within our company has just been a game changer. And to really kind of step into that next level leader who can rely and trust on the team to accomplish some pretty aggressive goals that we've set as a group together. But overall, I think the feminine, I do feel like a mom. I've created a culture where it feels like family, and I think that is so valuable. It makes our team, even in the COVID world, I think we all still feel really connected to one another, intentionally, based on our weekly meetings and then our little one-on-ones that we randomly distribute throughout our team. And so creating that sense of culture, even though we can't be together on the same table or even in the same room, we can help build that culture.
Well, I think that takes, for me, it takes a lot of bravery to create an environment that does feel like family, because family, I don't know about yours, mine's messy. Love them, but it's messy. And I think that, it, especially in a professional world, it can sometimes be easier to keep people at arm's length, because then the difficult conversations don't feel as hard. The good may not feel quite as good as it can if it's familial, but then you avoid ever really getting that vulnerability. And I think that for you to take at the very onset of this, let's talk about the fact that you started this company with your first child, and then you're expecting your second here in the next few weeks, and you've raised money while also expecting. I only have one child, so I can't even imagine being pregnant while being a mother to a small one and doing a business. But I know I was exhausted when I was pregnant with my daughter, and just the drive and stamina, and to your point, probably delegation, working smarter this time around. I'm sure all of that, but I want to, I guess, did you intentionally lead with vulnerability as you were creating the company, or was it just innate to you and then you looked back and said, oh, look, we did that?
Oh gosh, I would say, it was intentional when we first started to build a team. Right before, I had to build a team pretty quickly when I found out I was pregnant, and then I knew I had only had a runway of about 5 months to put together the initial team of the 5 people that were going to cover for me while being out, and they're all part-time contractors. I couldn't afford full-time. That was free investment, and I was just bootstrapping the idea and still seeing if it was actually going to fly. And so what we did was we actually started having weekly lunches at my house. I would just invite people over. We didn't have an office. We were all working remote. And so we started to make it feel like a family. We would, rotate who decided like where we were getting it, bring it here, and have this like weekly community gathering, and then go over our goals and objectives for the week and start planning. And I think that intention, we also would always ask, kind of use it as an opportunity to experience a civic dinner in some way, asking a question. And so we would really model the model and got to know the team members that way. And I feel like, I mean, vulnerability in a startup, you just have to be vulnerable. You have to be realistic and keep people fully aware of like what's going on, because there's nothing that's fully guaranteed in a startup. We all are responsible for helping to bring in revenue, to help with sales. We're all playing lots of different hats. There's lots of this excitement and also like terrifying realities of like, whoa, we only have 2 months of runway, and here's, and things don't happen on time, or things get delayed. So just, I think all we can ask of one another is just to be open and transparent, and that comes with vulnerability. So the trust factor there, like really being able to lean on the team to trust, that people will do what they say that they will do on time, and building that kind of supportive environment, so that if someone does make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Like, we'll learn from it. We'll move on, but treat people as if they're humans. Because again, like especially after having birthed William, I definitely went through a period, I guess 3 or 4 months after my first birth, that were really hard, because if we were juggling, what does childcare look like? How do I, what do you do? And we had to go through a few nannies to find the one that we have now, who's amazing. But our first couple, some would just not show up. And then what do? My husband's also an entrepreneur, so we'd have to juggle and take, you take this hour, I'll take this hour, and just, had to work from home or rearrange. So there were definitely stressful moments, and there were moments where I definitely wasn't my best self, or was maybe shorter on attention span, and also shorter just on patience, because of just lack of sleep. Honestly, being a mom, as you know, sleep deprivation can just ruin you as a human. So I went through that, definitely got better once he was sleeping through the night, and I was able to establish some form of routine again. But I feel without trustworthy support, like without a full-time nanny who we could depend on, it was really hard. So until about 4 months in, until we found the one that we have now. So yeah, I'd say it was not easy.
Totally. I feel that so much. And I think that, I don't know if this was your experience, but so you had, a 4-month-old, you and your husband are both entrepreneurs. A couple of years prior, you had talked about, getting married, having children, or maybe even before that. Was that the image of what you had your first year of motherhood looking like? I mean, have you always been somebody that wanted to be an entrepreneur? Or so talk to me about, like, in your mind, what did having it all mean, maybe at an earlier age? Because I think you and I are similar ages, and growing up, it really did feel like that was the message. But somehow attaining all of that, I personally haven't always known how the pieces fit together. It's kind of like make one decision at a time. But I'm just curious what that felt like to you, maybe younger you, and then what the reality was.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So younger me, I mean, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was like 8 years old. I was the one
8-year-old Jenn hustling,
selling. I was the one like selling cookies and lemonade outside my house, going door to door, selling friendship bracelets, selling them on the back of the school bus.
And what about it did you like? What about it did you like? What about doing it on your own, so to speak?
I really just enjoyed creating something. I think creating something of value that people enjoyed.
Okay.
And that is like the bare bones of marketing and sales, which is essential for entrepreneurship. So I think I also knew I had like a natural instinct for sales, but knew I didn't want to necessarily go directly into sales. I also knew I wanted to create a company, but as I learned more about sustainability and the implications of the world and what was going on, I wanted to create something that didn't have a negative impact on the environment.
Okay.
It would improve. And how do you how do you create a net positive company that only produces goodness, and that spreads good vibes without necessarily having to be a nonprofit? Because I definitely had an instinct. I wanted, if I was going to do this fully, I wanted it to be sustainable, to be able to support me without necessarily having to ask or ask money from grants or
Right.
so on. So I feel like for me, having it all, back to your question around like how did you define having it all? I mean, I looked at my mother, who she had a stable government job for 35 plus years, and she's been able to retire and make the same amount of money she's been able to make since when she was working, which is amazing. And that's like the stable, the consistent life.
Yeah.
She was always home for us. Never traveled for work. So I definitely grew up in a very safe and loving family and environment. And then my father was like kind of the opposite. It was an ebb and flow, good years and bad years. And you never knew kind of like what the financial situation would look like. But I really admired the freedom of like setting your own schedule and being able to work with who you wanted to work with and being able to work on the projects you wanted to work on. And I leaned heavily into that, especially I think from a sense of from having it all. I knew I first wanted to build and establish my career, and then find the man of my dreams, and then have kids once we had like a stable financial footing to be on, because I knew entrepreneurship definitely comes with some risks. So I wanted to make sure I had enough tucked away that I could, be able to provide for the family. And I knew also that I didn't want to ever have to depend on someone else to provide for me, that I wanted to be independently, financially, stable, to be able to have a family and do so on my own, because my mother went through 3 divorces, and nothing is guaranteed. So I think I grew up with that mentality as well, and I wanted to find a partner who was also willing to be a full partner, whether in life and in business. My dad had married Robin, my stepmother, who they co-own their company together. So they work together, they live together, and I love it. And so they really modeled for me what it could look like to have a partner who is also an entrepreneur, who loves it and can appreciate the time and effort that I put into work, and so on. So I can definitely attest, though, that it hasn't. I mean, my life's journey, I went through a stage, I think, between 24 and 30, where I decided to, it was like my rebel years, I'd say. I eloped with a Swedish man.
I was waiting for like the part in the story where there was some like grit, because right now it sounds wonderful, right? You're the perfect blend of financially responsible entrepreneur. So you're your mom and your dad, and you start this great company, and you have this awesome husband. So like, I need to know, like, where was it the time of like, you were literally like, fuck it all. Like, I need to know what that looked like. So then we know that there is hope for the rest of us.
Oh my God, no, I've got that. Don't worry. So
I was starting.
I was 24. I was in a really great job at the time, but I was new to Atlanta and trying to kind of find my new crew. And I stumbled upon this international crowd of people from all over, and instantly fell head over heels in love with this Swedish guy, Rickard, who didn't even speak English. So it was definitely a mix of lust and just like this image that I had of like, oh, Swede, oh, fun, something different. And so we eloped. I didn't tell my parents until 3 months afterwards.
I'm only imagining my parents right now. I don't know what yours are like. I'm getting a little bit, but yes, I can. I'm loving this story.
And so we ended up getting married, and we had a house together, and things were fine, but not awesome. And suddenly I just started to realize, he started to question why I was so into the community, doing extra work. I also started to start my freelance. So like almost starting to play and toy with the idea of running my own company, but wanted to kind of ease into it. Yeah. So I would take on, and he didn't like me spending so much time on the weekends working on things that I was passionate about, or working in the community. And so suddenly one day, my best friend sat me down, and she's like, Jen, are you happy? And I was like, no, I just burst into tears. And it was 4 years into the marriage, and I knew that it wasn't the right fit. We weren't even getting along as speaking friends. And so I realized, I was like, I wasn't even 30 yet. I was about to turn 30. And I decided then that I knew what I needed to do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get divorced, sell our house, which we had this beautiful townhouse in Inman Park, and quit my job, because I was also finally starting to get more passionate about being able to run my own projects and do my own thing. And then I got bangs.
That is the ultimate marker of what the hell is going on with your life.
That is the truth. Fuck it all.
Yes.
So basically I said, okay, I want all new cards. Like, I'm just starting over almost. And I was right when I was 30. And it's true, because my dad always used to say, don't get married until you're 30, because you don't even know who you are until then. Which, looking back, is true. But so at that moment, I realized I ended up, thankfully we were able to sell the house pretty quickly for more than we expected. So I, again, like, had that financial stability. I was able to quit my job and start my own consulting firm. I was able to live in a cute little apartment for the first time, living on my own in my entire life. I'd always had a roommate or moved in with someone else.
Powerful. So you're turning 30, flip the switch on all things, and that alone time, I've only had it a few times in my life, but it's so transformative. It can be lonely, but it is so transformative just to get to know yourself.
Yeah, and to be able to, like, design my own life the way that I wanted it, and even pick up my own furniture for the first time in my life, and have this space.
Like, what's for dinner tonight? Whatever the hell Jen wants. That's
I know. And that to me was like when I felt, when you say like feeling your power, that's, I think, when I finally stepped into deciding, okay, who am I as Jenn Graham? Who do I want to be? And who do I want my partner to be? And that, when I had time to really reflect also on learning the lessons from the previous marriage, like who do I not want, and how do I get better about recognizing any potential red flags earlier and trusting my instincts. And I swear, 2 weeks after the official signing of the paperwork for getting my divorce is when I met my now husband, like, seriously, the man of my dreams. So it was, the timing, I feel like, was divine in some ways, but it also, because I had the courage to actually let go of something that wasn't working, and just to risk maybe not finding anybody. But it was better. I knew I was going to be better off at least being on my own than staying with where I was. So, and then since then, when we've been able to build a life together. He's an entrepreneur, and together he gave me the courage to also really go all in on Civic Dinners and to help build that. And we live now in a dream home, in a dream neighborhood, in a dream street with our beautiful child. And I mean, again, like, I do feel at this moment we have it all, because it's about our health and our marriage and our just ability to be able to do what we want. And it's essentially building a company that I truly believe in, having a career that I love, where I love work just as much, and he does too. So, but I'm also not naive to believe that it'll always be like that. I think, circumstances change and things change. So I feel really being grateful for where we are in the moment, but also kind of keeping on our toes and making sure that we're constantly, making sure that we have what we need to be happy, but also not trying to overextend ourselves to do more than we think is necessary to just maintain our content.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. I have a dear friend, and we often hear the phrase, "This too shall pass," when it comes to negative things. And she's great sounding board for me. And she'll often say, even when things are good, this too shall pass. So, like, sit in the presence of that, like, enjoy that.
Enjoy it.
And that to me is something that I constantly, especially after becoming a mother a little over, almost a year and a half ago, I've reminded myself of that so much. And even as we find ourselves in this pandemic of, in many ways, yes, this is for a lot of people awful. For me personally, I've been very fortunate that we've been able to, financially sustain, we've been healthy, all of these things. And getting to spend this first year of my daughter's life home with her, that has been such an unexpected blessing of like, this too shall pass, right? There will become a moment when the world resumes and maybe, we go back to work in traditional ways. And so I love that you're sitting in that present moment and just, it sounds like actively practicing gratitude.
Totally. I have to. I mean, I think that's the only way to truly appreciate, to stop and feel the happiness in the moment. Because I think, just to honor it and appreciate it, because life is moving so fast and you never know what's coming around the corner. But
what are some of your, I don't know, I find that gratitude's a practice, right? Like, I don't think any of us are innately great at it. I think that it's something we have to continue to work on, and society doesn't enable us to always do it that well. And so I'm curious, what are some of your, whether it's exercises, resources, things that have just helped you along the way to really be able to sit and be present?
Wow. I'd say, sometimes my husband and I will wake up on a Saturday morning and before our son does, and he's usually the positive instigator, and he'll say, or if it's even when we're going to bed at night, he'll say, can we do like a quick gratitude round, or let's just like walk through things that we're really grateful for. And I love that, because it just thinks, and the first thing comes to mind is like, I'm so grateful for our health. That's one thing that you can't buy, and it's something that is so fleeting and something you definitely take for granted. So the health of our children, health of the little one inside the moon, and health of family and friends, and so on. And then it's also, I feel, that's one. The second thing is also, sometimes a practice I've been doing recently is I've actually kind of removed myself, or unintentionally even removed myself from social media, in the sense of like, I don't feel the same pressure that I have to post, that I have to update, like, friends and community on what's going on, and that I need to do that. I used to feel that like, I have to, in order to, maintain that presence and so on. And I think now maybe it's just being a mother, or just not having the time, honestly, to keep up with it. I don't feel that. And then because of that, I don't get sucked into the social, the anxiety that is often found on social media as well, where whether it's like comparing myself to other female founders who are doing amazing work and doing great, and applauding them, but also being like, oh, you're doing so well, and all this.
And that's like a big part of us that jumps out.
Naturally, try to make sure, like, are we doing enough? Are we enough? And I think that question is sometimes social media isn't the best place if that comes up. And so making sure that also that part of that is directly related to the news cycle. So trying not to get sucked into the things that you can't control.
I love all of those. I've personally done some of the things that you're mentioning. The gratitude, it ebbs and flows as far as the active practice, but the social media has been a big one for me. I had a friend reach out the other day. She said, "Are you okay? I haven't seen you post anything in a while." And I loved that, because I'm like, I hadn't even really thought about it. I've actually removed it off of all my devices. And so I have to log in if I want to. And that additional step, a lot of times I don't. It was such a mindless behavior versus something that I intentionally was going to do. And so it's, but there is the societal expectation. Maybe COVID, all of us being at home, has removed some of that. I don't know. But I feel less pressure as well. And I find myself feeling happier more often than not. And I don't miss it.
I know. I don't miss it.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want to talk a bit about, so we've talked a bit about civic dinners, which I personally am just such a huge fan of. And I love that it's, when you were mentioning the news cycle, social media, so often we're screen and we are, 4 versions removed from the truth. And I find that anytime in life I sit down and talk to someone, that can be a personal disagreement all the way to, political issues, that it's really difficult to be a total asshole face to face. Like, right? Like, I find that it just brings out a better, more human side of people to look at each other as individuals and try to hear stories. And so I'm immensely grateful that you've put that into practice as a job and are making, it's obvious the world needs it because you just hit your $1 million mark, which is amazing. So you and I've got to know each other through the professional side of things, and today, hearing the personal side, I feel like I could sit here for another 3 hours and ask about like this inner confidence and risk tolerance, because I mean, I've heard so many moments where you just said of leaving a marriage, which I mean, society in itself, right? You were a young woman getting divorced. Like, I can't imagine what that might feel like coming from a mother or parents that have been divorced. You know, I'm a product of divorced parents as well, and that's been one of my greatest fears since I can remember, right? I don't want to do that. And so I can only imagine the courage that took in that moment to say, this doesn't serve me though in this moment.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it can feel really selfish, but that's okay. I think in that situation, I mean, you have the choice. Do I stay in an unhappy marriage for the next 50 years? Or do I just accept that, hey, I fucked up. I chose the wrong partner and it was totally on me because I didn't even tell my family. We eloped. And so it was definitely, I think, one of the most humbling exercise or experiences of my life, and a huge lesson learned. And really, you know, and yes, I mean, to some extent I could downplay it and say, well, you know, it was a practice marriage and we were just young and having fun, and wanted to make sure, you know, we could just stay together because he was from Sweden, so he ended up having to get a green card and all that. And like, I really wanted to make it work, but also it's like, you know, in reality, we were just two beings that were floating in different directions and different values. And I started to appreciate what I really valued, and I wanted to fight for those values, and I didn't want to have to compromise on those values. And I think once, I mean, but sometimes it takes someone else who's watching from the outside to pull you out of that funk. And that, like, seriously, without my best friend sitting down with me and asking, hey, are you happy? And if not, it's okay. You're still young. Like, getting to the reality that like you still have so many years left in your life to like figure it out, and it's okay. You don't have to pretend like it's perfect. And so I think that for me was like a big awakening moment, and saying like, you know what, okay, it's gonna be fine. It was like this, I can let it go. And once I had made the decision, it was emotionally upsetting for about a month, and then it took a while for my former husband at that time to kind of to also come around to it. So that was the hard part too, telling him and how to do that in a compassionate way so that we could break it off amicably as possible. Because I did want to hurt him. I knew. I mean, he wasn't a bad person. He was a good person. And it just we just weren't the right fit for each other. And so sometimes it just takes a while for the other to realize it, and to realize that they actually might be way more happier and being in a relationship with someone else. And so I think that's, you know, just thinking beyond the present in that moment, and thinking of the positive that could come out of it, and even, you know, not dwelling necessarily on being alone for the rest of my life, but being able to open that space for creating new opportunities. So yeah, I had no idea where that risk tolerance came from, but I think it's from a lot of trial and error. I think being in a moment where I grew up having to fly to Memphis to see my dad because my parents were split since I was like 1. They were divorced, so I only knew, you know, 2 different lives, my mom and my family and my siblings, and then I would visit my dad and my stepmom in the summertime. And so I would have to go over for 2 months and make whole new friends every time. And so I would really get pretty bold. I would, you know, be in a swimming pool and swim up to someone, hey, do you want to be my friend? and
I kind of wish we could bring that back as adults, right? Like sometimes let's just cut this. Are we good?
Oh yeah. So I got just really comfortable being, either just me, and I think also that translated to, I guess, a consequence of also being away during the summertime is that I didn't really have a close clique or a group of friends in growing up either, whether it's through, except middle school, right? When you first meet your first crew in 6th grade, and
right, your ride or die.
your ride or die people, yes. And then, but even in high school, like I wasn't around in the summer, so I missed out on all of that, and so I kind of was okay being the floater, being acquaintances with a lot of different groups, but not necessarily tight, close with any of them. And I think that also just gave me the, I guess, thicker skin in the sense of being okay doing my own thing sometimes, and yeah, developing whatever risk tolerance that comes with, whether it means, me, oftentimes I was the one asking the guys to prom or to so on, and that was just my way of doing it, and totally against the grain. But
I love that so much, and the things that I think about, especially as new mothers, I know your son's a couple years older than my daughter, but as new mothers, thinking about, it sounds like a lot of your life has been building a foundation for the family you wanted to have, right? Financial stability, the career you wanted, finding the right partner, right? Not having kids with the wrong partner, like all of these things. And I think as women, especially women that elect to, to have children and have a family, so many of those decisions are with your future children in mind. And one thing I don't struggle with, but I wonder about is, all of those things that you mentioned that might sound not the best to a 13-year-old having to spend every summer away, but those were moments of that grit, right? That gave you something that you honed into the skill that made you uniquely Jenn, and brave to be an entrepreneur and leave situations that weren't serving you. You're giving your children a different life, and they'll have their own struggles, I'm sure, but they're going to be different. And I wonder a lot about, how do you at least emulate the behavior, actively emulate that, so that they're learning through different ways. Maybe they're not learning through those hard experiences in the same ways that you and I may have of growing up. But I think about that with my daughter all the time. How do I not make her this vanilla version of herself? How do I not make her, muted because her life has been one that maybe is a little easier? And how do I make sure that she's still bold in all of the ways that, I want her to develop? I don't know if you ever think about that as a mother.
Yeah, gosh, when I do have time to think.
Right. When you're not doing your 40 other things.
Which is just real. Yeah. I haven't had time to even prepare for my little girl who's coming in 2 to 3 weeks. So I'd say, but I mean, I have been thinking a lot about her, especially bringing a female woman into this world that we live in, and I want her to be strong, and I want her to be able to stand for everything that she believes in, and and so I plan to intentionally treat her the same I would treat William, and make sure that they're safe, but also give them the boundaries and give them the freedom to be able to explore, to fall down, to say, you're okay, pick you back up. But I think, we plan to move to New Zealand in about 4 years. And we know any kind of big movement like that, change, will definitely create some adversity for them, having to build new friendships and relationships in a whole new country, and get acquainted with new life and whatever that might look like, and having family all over the world, and but want to definitely expose them to as much as possible without coddling and helicopter parenting, because I totally get it. I think so many of the amazing entrepreneurs came from very difficult childhoods. and
Totally, right? That resilience is one of the most wonderful traits a person can have.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how you prepare or intentionally provide scenarios where they can build resilience without just allowing them that space to mess up. I think I definitely did. I was a goody two shoes up until college, and then after college, I did everything by the book. I was the good girl, and then I rebelled and I went and eloped and then did my thing. And for me, that was it was probably delayed. Most people do that in their teens.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think it's going to happen. I don't think we have as much control over it. I think the best thing that we can do as parents is to provide them with opportunities to build the values and the character. I think those qualities of character are built before they even turn 5. And that's, if they have that solid foundation, if they know that they're loved and loved just for being them, not because they do good things or that they are good or that they're smart or that they are, but just because of who they are. I think that is the self-esteem is like, I think the best thing we can give as parents to our little ones. And I can tell you, I'm probably part of who I am today is because my dad used to put me in front of the mirror and make me say I love myself while I look in the mirror, which is just like so cheesy when you're like 10. But he definitely was a big believer in the building of self-esteem and how that starts at such a young age, and just to have that intrinsic love that doesn't come from anybody else. But I mean, who knows how much of an effect that had on who I am today, but I definitely have never felt like I didn't love myself. I can't remember a time that I haven't.
Oh my gosh, I know we're talking during that time, so we're going to keep this conversation where I promised you, but that is so powerful to me. Like, you've never remembered a time that you didn't love yourself. Like, what a gift. And I know I'm going to take
don't get me wrong, like there are times when I'm like,
why did I do that? Or what did it?
Yeah, but I always love myself. I think that's the difference. It's like there's things that I can do to improve, but I would never, say. I was trained also to never say anything negative after I say I, like the whole like positive affirmation, because the subconscious then takes it as truth. If you say whatever you say, your unconscious then believes it. And
I did a bad thing. I am not a bad thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think that positivity can go a long way, and and just kind of in orienting again the self-esteem, and also that self-actualization component of that small wins can help build confidence. And so if I do something, if I tell myself I'm going to do something and I actually do it, then that just strengthens the self-esteem even more.
I mean this in the best way, and I hope that you take it this way. I feel like you're what I've come to know about this business, and what I know now from our conversation today, is like you were setting out to mother the world. Aww. And like, I love that. And I mean that in the best way. I don't mean it in any sort of way. I mean it in its full power of, you are responsible for helping this person, this thing, in this case, the world, be a better place. And that's so big. And I'm so grateful for the time we've had today.
Oh, wow, thank you. Well, I think ever since I decided to start my own company, I wanted my design consultants practice, whatever I called it. I wanted it to be about using my design skills that I had learned in design school to help build a more inclusive world. And that's kind of how we've actually been able to embed that into the mission and purpose of Civic Dinners. Is like, we are about creating a more inclusive world where everyone has a voice in co-creating a better future. And I think that's literally what everybody wants, is just to have a voice, to feel heard, to feel like they have a role to play, and to be able to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm like thinking of people I need to go schedule a dinner with, because I don't know that we're always seeing eye to eye, but that I probably could hear their voice too right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we wrap up our session together with a couple rapid fire questions, and feel free to, give me your honest, authentic answer. And if you don't know it, that's okay. We can move right past it. So we can call it. All right. Finish this sentence. The best part of being a woman is?
Being strong.
Yes. Who do you admire?
Ruth Bader, or Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes. Amen to that. What is a simple pleasure that makes you really happy?
Cuddling with my little one.
The best.
Oh my God, it's the best.
It's the best. I call it my baby Xanax. Finish this sentence. When my power is shaken, I
eat ice cream.
Oh, what's your favorite?
Total emotional eater.
Totally. What's your flavor? What's your go-to?
Oh, ice cream. I mean, a chocolate Jenny's.
Oh, yeah.
Darkest chocolate all the way.
Anything Jenny's.
Anything Jenny's.
What are you reading right now?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh man. Honestly, I have become a scanner and a skimmer. So I've been reading a lot of HBR articles, which sounds really boring, but I get a
Hey, I love some HBR. It doesn't sound boring.
Yeah. So it's a mix. I'm not really reading a book right now, but I regularly read and catch up on all the executive articles. Yeah.
I love that. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
My first design teacher, she told us that our role as a designer is to create a whole new world that doesn't exist, that no one can live without.
Love that. All right. And if you can tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
To love yourself.
I love it. Stand in front of the mirror and say it.
Yep.
All right, Jen, this has been amazing. On this Sunday afternoon, you have filled my cup. This is Fuck It All. It's all about modern women redefining what it means to have it all. Jen, you are that to me in spades, and I'm just so grateful for you to share your story and the story of Civic Dinners. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.